It's a beautiful, beautiful day from the Muay Thai Guy Studios, meaning me sitting in my studio apartment here in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and Sean sitting in his little hut and bungalow in Koh Phangan. But we also have a third on today. We have Zoila Frausto, who is an OG of combat sports, a Bellator female champion, blast from the past in a way. And now she is making her way back into the world of combat sports. This is really interesting. I hate asking this question for whoever comes on the podcast because I feel like it's so general and everyone asks it from the beginning of how people got started. But you kind of have a unique story because you were in this game before it was mainstream, before it was really a thing. And
Yeah.
that's really interesting to kind of dive into, like how you even get into the world of combat sports when combat sports aren't a mainstream thing. It's difficult enough for females to be in it today. So,
Yeah.
I just kind of want to introduce Zoila here. So, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
I'm Zoila Frausto. You kind of said what I've done. I mean, I've been through Bellator. I've done Muay Thai recently, just recently. I've been doing Muay Thai, which is it really hasn't been that recent, but I mean, the last 5 years have been like Muay Thai and kickboxing. But before that, I got started in MMA. But in the very beginning, it was all just strictly Muay Thai. I got thrown into MMA, and then I did so well that I just kind of went with that. But I've been doing this for close to 12 years now. It's been a long time. Doesn't feel like it's been that long, but it has. I have a few titles in Muay Thai, but the biggest one is what a lot of people know is that Bellator Women's World Title, and that was at
Yeah.
115 pounds, and that was MMA. So I've been doing this for a long time. I've had a couple of really big injuries, and that I just got through the second one, and fought Muay Thai again. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
How did you first find out about combat sports? Because 12 years ago, there must have been like three gyms in all of the world.
I was in where I'm right now. Actually, I'm visiting family in Central California. I was here in Madera, Fresno. I was playing college soccer. I had always been involved in martial arts as a child, as a kid. Like I did taekwondo with my family when I was. I mean, who hasn't really done that? I think, but and I played soccer my entire life. And going through college and doing that, it just wasn't enough for me anymore. I ended up finding the guys that I ended up starting with, which was like Pro Buhawe, and I started doing Muay Thai with them. And right off the bat, I like fell in love with it. Within a year of time, I ended up fighting like my first pro fight because it was so hard to find amateur fights. I didn't fight any amateur fights. I think I had like two smokers, and then I went pro right away. Um, and I did Muay Thai, trained Muay Thai for maybe like a little less than a year, and then I had my first pro fight, and I just fought like another month after that, another month after that, a month after that, and I just kept going for a while. So that's it, really. I mean, it wasn't anything big. I just something I found and fell in love with.
Something that was competitive at first. Did you ever see it going as far as it has? Because now it's just your entire full time thing from morning to night. I when I was there in California, so for those that don't know, I did one of my training camps at CSA Gym, and we've had a number of fighters from CSA on the podcast. We had Kevin on here multiple times. Then we recently had Eddie, which everyone absolutely loved, just kind of diving into his completely different perspective on the world and diving into his mind, which is extremely unique when it comes to training and the way he
Yeah,
thinks.
both of those guys
So
are by far, yeah, two huge inspirations when it comes to Muay Thai for me, anyways. But yeah, it was just different then. For me, then it was just about a challenge. I've been an athlete my entire life, so it wasn't really big then. I love the idea of fighting. I played soccer; it just wasn't competitive enough for me anymore. And then when I found Muay Thai, I fell in love with it. And I wanted to strictly do just Muay Thai, but the guys that I was working with it's hard to find fights out here. We'll just throw you in MMA. You're athletic. You can handle it. So I was like, okay, well, when am I ever gonna do Muay Thai? And then it wasn't until like 6 or 7 years later that I actually got into just strictly Muay Thai.
do
So was
you
there?
go
Sorry,
ahead?
go ahead, Paul. Who's going? Me or you?
I'll take the authority here.
All right,
I
do
just
it.
wanted to know if it was if this is something that, because for me, I've never been huge on team sports, but from what you said, you were in soccer and different team sports in the past. Did you enjoy going into something that is more, the pressure is more on just yourself?
Yes.
Though CSA is really a strong team at the same time. Like what I tell people about CSA is that I feel like a lot of the growth that comes from your team is you guys learning from each other, just kind of building
Mm-hmm.
upon each other. Because you'll see Kevin and Eddie drilling in the middle of the day and working with one another. And it's not particularly like sitting there with a coach. And although you guys do your pad work with Kieran, etc., a lot of it I feel like is team based and just building from the team, even though you're competing solo.
Yeah, well, when it came to that, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to switch over. I didn't want to um, have an outcome of like a win or a loss have to do with anybody else but myself. And when it comes to this, I mean, I have a huge team. Like I have people, doctors that I work with. I have, nutritionists. I have conditioning coach, striking coach, grappling, like for everything. But when it comes down to it, it's just me in there, and I like that idea and I like that challenge a lot more than I did when it came to like the team sports like soccer or baseball, basketball, any of those sports. I mean, I've played them all, so I really enjoyed and the idea of the challenge, and it's all on me because when those cage door closes or whenever I jump into that ring, I'm the only one that's in there.
So when it comes to your training, you're talking about how like you're the only one in there. You're like I played team sports. I played hockey, baseball, football growing up, and you can do so well and you still lose a game. But where
Yeah,
in fighting, it's like it's all up to you. If you lose or win it, it's all on you.
yeah.
So when it comes to your training, that's kind of all on you as well, especially early on in your career where you're just trying to develop yourself and learn the ins and outs of the sport. So could you give
Hmm.
us a little idea of like what your training routine was like when you initially started and how it's evolved since then?
Oh man. Uh, when I first started, I really didn't know what I was doing. I just went by with what the coach that I had at the time wanted me to do, and I mean, I was in my early 20s, and I could go all day. I was training like 4 or 5 times a day. We were out in the park, and then we would go back to the gym, and then we were doing pads, and then we were sparring. Like it was nonstop, like constantly, and I had no idea anything about nutrition. I had no idea about recovery. I had no idea about the possibility of injuries and needing to take breaks and needing to sleep because at that time I was going to school, I was working full time, I was training to fight, and I was just doing so much, and I really didn't need the recovery. But now, after so many years, it boggles my mind how I got so far so fast and not knowing anything. Now it's like I work with different doctors, nutrition, like recovery, everything like plays a huge part in being successful in this sport. Well, for me, anyways, it does. And I was very successful in the very beginning because I didn't know any better, and I was just mentally strong from being an athlete all my life. Um, but now it's trying to take that, learn from everything that I did that was wrong in the beginning, and just trying to apply it to what I know now and everything else.
So going along those same lines, because you're talking about how like early on when you were younger, you can kind of just go balls to the wall, not focus on recovery, nutrition, and obviously as you mature as a fighter and as a person, those things become a lot more relevant to making sure that you get the most out of your training. I know
Hmm.
you've dealt with some injuries, especially recently with your ACL tear and whatnot. How do you feel like having this team around you of professionals with your nutrition, with your doctors, how has that helped you, and how do you feel like that's going to benefit you in the long run as well?
I mean, it would have been a lot better if I would have had him then, but now that I have him now, I mean, I'm not getting any younger, so at this point, I do need them. Um, I think it just helps me understand what my body needs and what's going on and while I'm training hard, what like the things that are breaking down in my body or I don't know. It's just it's a lot less difficult to understand now because I have people telling me what's going on. I'm doing like blood tests and just with the different people that I'm working with. I don't know how to really explain it.
No, because I'm just curious because like injuries can completely derail people, and you've seen it happen so many times to like really promising fighters. And the
Hmm.
fact that you've been able to come back from two serious knee injuries just says a
Yeah.
lot about your like mental reserve and your ability to push through and not kind of take no for an answer. So I guess there's the physical aspect of the nutrition and having the doctors around you, but can you talk a little bit about the mental aspect? Like when it first happened, like how did you feel, and then when it's happened again, like how were you able to keep a positive frame of mind when it comes down to it and keep pushing forward?
My first ACL injury, it happened when I was on the top of the world. Like I had just won that world title with Bellator. I was fighting back to back to back. I was cutting a bunch of weight. At that point in time, I was ready to take a break. Like I think more than anything, I wouldn't say relieved, but it kind of felt like that for my body to take that break because I wasn't able to lose weight. Like I was cutting down to 15 and I was cutting or 115 pounds and I was cutting like 30 pounds every 4 weeks for that tournament. And my body more than anything needed a break. So when I tore my ACL the first time, that had been my first major injury. I had not been off my feet for more than maybe 4 days at a time, and I knew going into that they were like, you're not going to be able to do this for 6 months. You're not going to be able to walk for a month. So you're going to have to try to wrap your mind around that. But for me, I was mentally prepared for that because I had already been at the top of the world. I was like, okay, well, I need a break. This is fine. Like it'll reset everything that needs to be reset because I had so many problems with my body too from cutting all that weight and being a woman, and it just messed up my metabolism, my adrenals, like everything that was going on in my body was just wrecked. So I took that as like a reset, and I was like, okay, I need this break. I was still pretty young, so I figured it was what I needed. So mentally, um, I just kind of went with that and just try to stay positive. It was hard to come back, um, and I remember after the 6 month mark when I had my first sparring session. A couple of guys ran me over like in sparring. One was taking another one of the guys down, and my knee popped. And at that point in time, I was just like, "Oh my god! I had just got cleared to spar. This is I don't know how I'm going to mentally get over this." But after I went and got checked out, it was just like I guess it was like scar tissue. But I just it was weird. Like the first couple of fights back, it was hard not to think about the knee. Um, but after that, I was slowly able to get my feet under me again to get comfortable. It probably took me like a good 3 years after that first ACL surgery to feel comfortable again. And then not too long ago, well, I had surgery November 11th, but when I was back in Thailand, I think it was maybe now like a couple of years ago, I got ran over by two Russians and tore my ACL again. That
Fucking
point in
Russians,
time,
yo.
that point in time, I knew right away, and that was really hard to try to mentally get past, especially because I'm not young, and I was trying to climb back up to where I was, and I was so close to getting into certain places, and then for that to happen, it was pretty devastating. It was really hard this second time around to come back, but I just try to do everything I possibly could to stay positive and stay motivated. It was a really really hard recovery process, but I just felt like I had to push forward because this is what makes me happy. This is what I love to do, and if I were to quit doing that, if I were to just hang it up and go do something to make a comfortable living, which I very well could, I know I wasn't going to be happy. So I had to push through it, and I've been doing pretty damn good since.
Yeah, the reason why I wanted to bring you on here is because I feel like I connect to this story very closely as I tore my knee last December. Then I've had it dislocate a few times since. And then on top of it, having facial reconstruction. And it's funny that we come on the podcast today because I just re-broke the nose 2 days ago in sparring.
Uh,
So I I had it broken, then I had it broken worse where it got to the point that I couldn't breathe. And then I got the reconstruction done, and I just had to, try to make a comeback fight. And again, it snapped again in training. So there is a lot that goes through our minds, and I'm sure there was many times where you were talking to yourself, and I just wanted to dive into your mind a little bit more, like the type of conversations that you were having with yourself, because at times it almost feels like how I like to see it is that we're being tested. However, it can sometimes seem like it's a sign. A lot of people might be saying, I think that's a sign that, you had a great run, which you did. I mean, you became a champion in 3 different sports. To be a champion in 3 different sports, fighting kickboxing, Muay Thai, MMA, doing it at such a high level, that's an achievement in and of itself. So there had to be something to keep you pushing forward, to make you persevere and still want to do more.
Yeah, well, I think for me, it's always just knowing that I wasn't done yet. I'm not done yet. Like, I was doing so well before I got hurt. And I felt like I was hitting a new peak, hitting a new level. And then for that to happen, it's just, I knew that could not be the end of me. And I fight demons every day still, like every single day. Like, now this knee is 100%. So it's like every other little things. Like, I've broken my nose 7 times. I've had broken orbital, broken both my hands. Like, my shins are busted every fight. Like, these things don't ever heal. It's just, this is just what I love to do. And I think we take that chance every day in this sport. Like, whether you're training, it can happen drilling, it can happen in conditioning. My sister got a concussion from falling in conditioning over hurdles, bumped her head on cement. And it's like, every little thing that we do we're taking a risk, so it's like, why not take a risk doing what I love to do, so I try to keep that mindset. And I mean, it's never easy. It's never gotten any easier. Like, the longer that I've been doing this, the harder it gets, but the more rewarding it is to hit little goals here and there.
So speaking of goals, because obviously you have to have some type of like inner drive and inner purpose to be able to overcome these injuries and still want to continue breaking your hands, beating up your shins, doing all the things that fighters go through. So has your like why changed throughout your career? And like, what is your why right now in regards to like the purpose behind why you're fighting and why you're striving to be something so great?
Very much. When I first started, it was just for selfish reasons. I mean, I was an athlete, but it was always about me. Like, I'm going to be the best. I'm this, I'm that. And I didn't care about anything else or anybody in my way. It's changed so much throughout the years. Now, like, I have a lot of people reaching out to me and wanting me to speak and do things. Like that, or saying that I inspire them because of me going through the injury and coming back, or I inspire them because I've come from this small town and I was a great athlete and student when I was a kid, but I got into some trouble and I had to take a detour and get back on the right track. So I think more than anything, it's about inspiring the people around me, my family, more than anything, to see their smiles and the happiness in them whenever I win or do something great, and to encourage them to do things that they love to do. I think that more than anything is what inspires me to keep going and to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, this is more of a comment by me rather than a question for you, which is going through the last fight that I had, one fight by one fight, I just had injury by injury. And then it's more like rehabbing while going back into camp and trying to balance the two. I felt like this was the healthiest I ever been for a fight. And then in the first round of the Glory fight, I broke my hand when I landed the knockdown. And I felt a snap right then and there. I knew it was broken, and I knew it affected me mentally right away. Like, usually in the past, it would be I hurt something, I knew I would hurt it, and I would hit it all again and again and persevere through it within the fight. But here it was kind of like, this is the healthiest I ever been. And the second I landed that left hand, I felt a snap, and I just kind of stopped, like, fuck, man, again. And it's just the first round. And I felt like it probably did limit me and defeat me throughout round 2 and 3. So then right after the fight, it was probably the first time where I kind of questioned doing this all together. So I think those are the moments that really test us. And a huge part of looking at this is just perspective is, I'm only 20. I just turned 26 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people out there that have it much worse than me. There are people that are older with worse injuries.
Yeah.
And we've had people, we had Kojef Smith, he's from Australia, and he's fighting for Masters kickboxing title. It's his first kickboxing title at the age of 62 now. He's turning 62.
Damn.
I was just in Thailand training a female fighter who's from Ireland. She just fought in Belfast, had her pro debut in boxing at 40 years old. So it's definitely stories like that and stories like from people like yourself that keep me going. And that's why I sent that message to you, just saying how inspiring it was for me. So I'm sure your speaking engagements and all of that is well deserved, to inspire others. And just moving forward, as all of this has moved and changed, just how you said your why has changed and evolved, how has female combat sports evolved from the time that you began? Because for us, it's been a huge change, but especially for you guys gaining more opportunities now.
There are. It's so different. Then it was for me, I felt like it was fighting for respect as a female that's doing this. Now it's like we get it a lot more easy, and I was just like, why is this so easy now? Like this isn't how it was. But it's good. It's really good for the sport, and I think it's really nice doggy. It's really good for. I think it's really good for women in general, especially trying to get into this. But it's completely different from the way it was to the way it is now, which is really good, I think.
In which ways?
As far as like it's hard to, because I go back and forth from MMA to Muay Thai, and there's so much more respect when it comes to Muay Thai. MMA, people aren't so nice. I think, and I'm talking more along the lines of like fans and stuff. So there's not too much respect there because people say what they want to say, regardless. But I think just the opportunities, the being able to actually make a living doing this. I mean, when I first started, there was no way in hell that anybody was going to be able to make a living doing that unless you were like the number one, or unless you were like I really don't know how much money she made back then, but Gina she started to be a big name when I had first started. So, but I don't believe any other women in the sport when I began were making that much money. Now I know that a lot of women are making a lot of money, and they can very much do this full time. I've been doing this full time, but the money has been completely up and down for me. So,
well, speaking of the money, because obviously you need to pay the bills and have some type of salary in order to train full time and give it all that you got. Was there any point in your career where you had like this sense of doubt that you weren't going to be able to make ends meet? And if so, how were you able to overcome that?
That is a constant battle till this day. That when I first started, I was working full time. I was living comfortably, and I was making a lot of money fighting, like compared to the men that were fighting that were on my team or other women that I had talked to. Like I was making a pretty good amount of money. But when I switched over to Muay Thai and as things started to decline in my when I got hurt, I wasn't making as much in MMA. When Bellator got rid of their women's division, and I wasn't making much money in MMA, things were they were looking down pretty, and I didn't know if this was going to be a good idea for me to either keep doing this, or if I was going to have to like pick up a bunch of jobs or just go and do something completely different. But I don't know. what was the question again? Sorry.
Just like, how were you able to keep going? Because like so many people come to me asking like, oh, how do you make a living doing Muay Thai? I'm like, well,
You don't.
yeah, you can't really make a living, I
You
would
don't.
say, you
You
know. And
can't.
so I'm just curious, like with like your situation, like how were you able to make it all work out? Where you were able to, like, you had these injuries too, like where you're not
Yeah.
fighting and you're not getting paid. So like,
Yeah.
what did you do to keep going forward?
I teach at the gym, even though that's not very much money, especially living in the Bay Area. And I work part time with my mom. She has a business as a tax preparer, so I've done that 4 months out of the year, and that gets me by from like camp to camp. When I got hurt, I was lucky that the tax season had just started in January after I got my surgery done in November, so I was able to do that, save some money up, and use it on the recovery, use it on just the camp that was going to come. So it's just teaching, and whenever tax season comes around, but it's not very much money. Like I've been sacrificing a lot these last, I would say, 5 years since I moved back to California, and not a day has been easier. But it's just, I love to do this, and if I were to take that time away that I put into training and fighting, and go get a full time job or go get a regular part time job, um, I wouldn't be able to get better the way that I need to, or learn as much as I need to be successful in this. So um, it's a sacrifice. I'm not getting paid very much, and I struggle a lot, but I love this. So
Looks like Paul's frozen, so I guess I'll just keep asking the questions for now. But
okay.
yeah, just because I think it's such a common thing that a lot of people just see the championship belts, the wins, the good things, and they tend to overlook the bad things, and especially when it comes to like the behind the scenes things when it comes to making enough money to get by. So I'm glad you were able to kind of elaborate on how you were able to make it happen, because I think people see fighters as they put them on a pedestal in regards to like, oh, he must be making Conor McGregor type of, like, people just think like people are making all this shit ton of money fighting. Meanwhile, there's
No,
like no, there's not a lot of money in
there's
You're
no
on
fighting.
money.
TV.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're on TV.
yeah,
You must be making a lot of money, right? No, that's
yeah.
like definitely not
No,
true. The TV people are, but like the fighters themselves, which is kind of
yeah,
fucked up, are not.
no.
But do you have like, did you ever think about quitting at any point? Like, did you ever think about maybe I should try to do something more responsible, right? Something that the
Yeah.
society thinks that I should be doing it like a full time job. Did that ever creep into your mind?
For maybe a day. I think I had an RFA fight, and I think that was my first time back down to 115 pounds in like 5 years, because I wanted to make a run in the UFC, and I figured that was the only way I was going to be able to do it. So I tried to get down to 115. My body was not having it. I got down to like 116.2. And in that fight, I ended up breaking my hand. That's where I got my orbital broken, my nose broken. I had a torn labrum before going into that fight. At the end of that fight, I fought the 25 minutes that it was a championship fight for MMA. Um, but at the end of that day, I was just like, I ended up with like maybe a $1,500 check. The manager that I had at the time sent me like a $1,300 bill, and I was just broken, beat up, and I was like, I had sacrificed so much to get here. I'm in debt now, like I have to pay for all these other things the money that I put into this camp, and I made no money out of it. I think I had like wrecked my car, so I had no car at the time. Like it was just, I had just came back to California, I think maybe 2 years before that, and I was living from people's couch to couch to couch, because Bay Area living is not easy to do. And I had gone through a divorce right before that, so I had moved from Cincinnati here, and it was just trying to rebuild myself. And then for all that to happen and to lose um, in that fight, which was so much to me and so big to me, and was supposed to be the next step to get to where I wanted to go, I was just like, I have nothing left. Like it broke me. It completely just broke me. Like I was like, I need to grow up. I need to go make the money I need to make. Maybe this is it. I need to move on. I need to concentrate on my future, because I'm Mexican, so I'm constantly pushed to, Mom, when are you gonna, or like my mom's always like, when are you gonna have kids? I'm like, I'm not ready for kids. I gotta find somebody first to be able to do that. Like, and I'm like, and I'm not ready to do that. Like, I want, I want to do this. This is what I love to do. I don't want to have any regrets. So, thinking of all of that, and I'm like, okay, I probably should go do this because my mom wants me to help her and take over her business. Or, I've always thought about law enforcement. I've always wanted to do that. So I was like, sitting there in that hospital, and I think I had wrote out like a long post, like, I think this is it, you guys, like, I'm done, like, I've put too much into this, I can't do this anymore. And I woke up that next day and I was like, no, like, yeah, this isn't it, like, what the hell are you thinking? And like, I'd opened my Instagram and Facebook, and I just got like, and my phone, and there were just messages how people were so inspired, like, yeah, you did this, yeah, this happened, but you fought that entire fight, you're a warrior, this and that. And there were just so many inspiring like messages, and I apparently I touched so many lives that I was like, this is the reason, this is why, like, this is my reason. So but that was like the one time that I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep doing this to my body. I can't keep, paying into something that's not treating me right, and that's not, working out for me. Because at that point in time, like, the women had been in the UFC, I think, for like about 3 years, and I was like, why am I not there? And I was getting questions almost daily. How come you're not there yet? How come you're not there yet? I'm like, it's just not my time. Like, I was going back and forth from thinking about going back to MMA and Muay Thai and taking a break because I had personal problems. I had gone through a divorce. Like, there was just a mess of things that had happened, and at that point in time, I was like, I think I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. This fight is too hard. This is real now. So, but that all changed. Like, I thought I maybe slept on it and woke up and I was like, no, it's not. This is it. That can't be it for me. I'm not going to stop now.
You were just speaking about your mother, and it's Thanksgiving. You're actually home right now with
Yeah.
family. So,
Uh-huh.
how has that been throughout your entire career having to deal? Because there's a lot of people that reach out to us. I get a lot of emails about people and their parents. They're fighters in college. Their parents want them to focus on their studies. How was it dealing with your family throughout your entire career?
Well, I've always been, whenever I'm doing something, that's just what I'm doing. Nobody's going to change my mind. This is what's happening. And I've always been an athlete. So my mom, my dad, they've always supported me doing that. But my mom's always, she's Mexican. She wants grandkids, and I'm like, I'm the oldest daughter. I'm like, I'm not ready to do that. I'm still not ready to do that. And I'm 34, and I'm like, I'm still not ready to do that. Yeah. So, but it's just about telling them, like, you have to understand, this is what I love to do, and it's just the way it's going to be. Like, eventually I'll get there, but not anytime soon. And it's just about being strong in that, and telling them this is how it is.
Now that you've gotten to this point and you recently just had your comeback fight, which was amazing, by the way. You
Thank
performed
you.
super sharp. It felt like every round you were waking up more and
Yeah,
more. You wanted
that's
it
how it
more and
felt.
more. So it's
That's
like
exactly
round
how it
one, it was
felt.
like your comeback. Round two, you got comfortable. And round three, you're like, all right, this is my shot, my game
Yeah.
now. So what's the next step? Because I saw some rumors that you might be heading into the world of boxing to become a four-sport athlete now.
We'll see. There are a couple of things on the table. At this point in time, I just want to be treated right, and I want to fight. That's it. Um, I've been asking for so much before that. Like, before this injury, I was like, I need to be there. I need to be there, turning down everything because, the UFC wasn't calling. And then when I was, almost there and getting on that show, but didn't go because of the injury, it just kind of slowed everything down for me and made me have to think about what I really want. And I don't get retirement from this. I don't get 401k fighting. I have to think about just kind of what I really want out of this. And right now, it's just about um, fighting because I want to fight, and whoever's going to treat me right or get paid too, you know, because I have to make a little bit doing this too, because I can't keep sacrificing my body and not getting what it's worth at least.
So I guess wrapping up here. So first off, thanks so much for like sharing some like vulnerable insight on just the ups and downs that I think a lot of people overlook when it comes to a fighter's career, especially a successful fighter like yourself. They just think it's all gravy. You just work hard and it all kind of comes naturally to you. But we all know that's like not the case at all. So the fact that you're able to actually put some words to it and share your stories, I think that kind of just puts a different perspective on things. And we actually just have, before I go to wrapping it up, Christina Sylvia on Facebook just asked a question. Have you found out that when at the lowest points and you choose to follow your bliss, keep on the path of doing what you love to doing, that things that happen synchronistic like help you along the way? So I guess what she's trying to say is like, do you find that when you just kind of follow your heart, things just kind of naturally fall into place and like the universe kind of gets out of your way?
Absolutely. In sport more than like anything, it definitely, that's exactly what happens. At every lowest point that I've ever had, something huge has always happened. And it's so weird because I see that all the time and I've seen people say that and I'm always just like, okay, but it happens. It truly really does happen. It's so weird. But yeah.
Cool. And so just wrapping up, I want to ask one last question, just as like a general piece of advice for someone who might be dealing with an injury or a setback of some sort. What type of advice would you give someone who's trying to look to overcome something like that?
Just try to enjoy the process as much as possible. I think we get into our heads too much and what we're not doing and don't realize how far we've come, even with the little things. Like for me, when it came with the knee injury, I had to just try to give myself that little like high five when I was able to start walking again, you know. But like the first surgery that I had, it was like, I'm not kicking yet. This is terrible. This sucks. But the second surgery, I was like, I just had to, you know, kind of give myself a little pat in the back for the things that I've overcome. And then the next step, and then the next step. And you just feel better doing that. It's just something that fills you inside and makes you feel so much better than just kind of like constantly putting yourself down or, you know, just kind of letting those demons take over, because they'll crew up on you and you'll have bad days. I mean, it's hard to be positive all the time. Like you will have bad days and let them just kind of come through and let them pass. I think fighting them it just makes things harder, but you just gotta try.
Beautiful.
I just want to thank you for coming on, for sharing your story. I think it brings a lot of perspective to others going through the same thing, especially when is the first time that they're overcoming an obstacle, you know, to see someone else that it's happened over and over again. And I think you're a modeling example for that. So again, I just want to thank you for coming on. Before we leave, is there any shout outs that you want to give to your team, any sponsors, anyone else?
Oh man, I have so many. My team, CSA, Coach Kieran Fitzgibbons has been an amazing mentor, coach. I call him Coach Dad because he's just done so much for me and my comeback in my career. Cooper Sports. I mean, I don't think I've been an athlete the way that I am today, even before the surgery. So big things are to come because these people are making me into an amazing athlete. The Gut Institute, when it comes to my body, Dr. Andy Galpin that I'm working with, just all my training partners, and Cairo Sports USA, 44 Love, Meal Prep. There are so many. I know I'm forgetting people, but I have a huge team now of people that have helped me. And though I still struggle day to day in this, mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, I have a great team behind me, and I couldn't be more thankful. And thank you guys for having me. It's been a while since I've done like an interview like this, so I'm like stumbling, trying to like, oh, I got to think about this and that. And thank you guys.
You're natural. You're natural, so don't worry about it.
Yes, thank you. Shout out to CSA Gym. Shout out to yourself. And thank you guys for watching. Have a beautiful day. Muay Thai guys, we're out.